Hello there guys, thanks so much for watching. My name is Alex, you are watching the Alexander the Great YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about the legendary rock and roll band from the 1970s, that is Led Zeppelin. This comes from the suggestion of one of my subscribers from one of my earlier videos, and I'm following up today by delivering as such. I'm giving my subscribers what they want. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about Led Zeppelin. It's going to be a really difficult choice, some of these as I see, because legendary bands like Led Zeppelin have pretty much a flawless back catalogue of brilliant material, so I'm going to try my hardest to see where I can go. I'm going to start the video off now, but of course, if you're brand new, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean quite a lot to me if you do. I've got quite a few videos like this coming up, so stay tuned and you'll see a few of those. And please like the video if you do enjoy, that also really helps me out. Then finally, number 3, leave your own rankings and your own thoughts in the comment sections below. Please let me know if I've committed any mortal sin, any heresies in my rankings. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right down to the list. What I'm going to start off by doing is actually changing this, because I think it's quite weird to have D, C, B, A, and S as how you'd rank such a great band. Instead of S, A, B, C, I'm going to be giving them numbers, really just kind of levels. Because some of them are sort of in a certain camp of quality. Some of them are higher, and it goes up from there up to, let's say, 4. I might change my mind about that later, but yeah. Let's just give it 4 levels for the moment. These are all, let me just say before I even begin, these are all really good albums. There's not really a bad album anywhere. There's going to be a few albums that I will say are underrated, and similarly there are going to be a few that I'd say are overrated. And I'll be coming up as I rank them. So let's start off with my last place position. Unfortunately, it probably will be their last album, In Through the Outdoor. But while I put it where I put it, I will just say most of the songs in Through the Outdoor at least aren't bad at all. They're not skippable. There are some Led Zeppelin albums that are going to be appearing on this list in due course that I will be saying differently about. I'll be saying that even despite how I love the album, or I like the album better than this one, for example, I will say there's the odd song here and there that I don't really like. But In Through the Outdoor is not like that at all. At least most of the songs that I'm trying to remember off the top of my head right now are pretty decent. What I'd say, the vibe of In Through the Outdoor, kind of like Presence, it sounds like Led Zeppelin were really just letting their hair down just slightly. They were kind of trying to have a bit of fun and weren't really trying to make the greatest rock and roll album of all time. They were just trying to have some fun, make a good little last album. Well, they weren't even thinking of it as last album, of course, but they were late in their careers. You can kind of clearly hear that they are kind of easing it up a little bit, and it kind of feeds out into the quality of most of the songs. But as for the songs, they're pretty good. I'm just going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to look at the song list in another window. So In the Evening, great song. And Southbound Suarez, it's a fun, entertaining little track. Same exact thing for Fool in the Rain and Hot Dog. Carousel Lumbra, I'm trying to remember how these songs go. I do remember them being pretty good. All of My Love, another great one. And then finally, I'm Gonna Crawl. I'm just about remembering it, and it's pretty decent. Would I say any of these songs are any of their greatest hits, or any of their top 10 or 15, whatever? No, they're just okay. They're just kind of average scoring, really. None of them are bad. For me, I just really like the vibe of this album. Personally, I think it's a really fun little interesting album that they made. So yeah, although technically it's one of the weaker ones, I'm not going to say it's a bad album at all. It's not a boring album. And some people present it like it is, almost. People say, oh, this is so much worse. No, I think this is, it's going to, in context, seem a lot more appreciated by me, because there's a few things that I've got to say about the other albums that are really going to maybe piss some people off. So, speaking of the other albums, let's just keep on moving. So, next one, off the top of my head, do I put Presence next? No. I think I'm going to put Led Zeppelin 1 as the next one. How does this go? There we go. Whoops. The reason for why I put Led Zeppelin 1 as second from worst is only because while they've got some amazing songs peppered in the track list of Led Zeppelin 1, like Good Times, Bad Times, You Shook Me, How Many More Times, and to an extent, Dazed and Confused, there's a lot of songs I'm just feeling a bit meh about. They're just a little bit plain for my taste. They're clearly finding their feet still. And for 1969 standards, I would just say as well, Communication Breakdown is a really heavy song. So I would say, just like I did with Into the Outdoor, this is a decent album for sure. But unlike Into the Outdoor, I will just say there are some songs that I'm definitely going to skip, which is probably going to be quite spicy to say, but yeah, just in my heart of hearts, as I'm honestly ranking these albums with as much truth and honesty as I possibly can. While Led Zeppelin 1 has a few really good songs, it's got a lot of songs that aren't great in my world. For that reason, it's going to be at the bottom rung, shared with Into the Outdoor and a few others that I'll probably put down in just a moment. So number 3, third from worst. It's either going to be this next one or another one. I'm just sort of debating it amongst myself. Here we go. So like I said at the beginning of the video, it's going to be really hard and challenging to actually place these. That's the thing about Led Zeppelin. They're such a great band. I think just on instinct, because I'm going to think about it way too hard otherwise, tentatively, it's going to probably be Presence. Presence feels very much like a sibling album to Into the Outdoor. It's another relaxed album. You can clearly tell that they're not really trying to make a masterpiece like they were in other albums' cases. But it doesn't suffer that much for it. It's got such a character and such a unique flair that it shares with Into the Outdoor. It's quite an entertaining listen. It's quite relaxed and fun. Some people would say Achilles' Last Stand is one of the best songs. Achilles' Last Stand kind of reminds me of the Immigrant Song in a way. It's one of their really well-known songs and one of the most popular. For me, it could just be because I've heard it too many times. I don't consider that one like a smash hit in my world, unfortunately. It's decent. It's definitely great. I think they could have trimmed that song down, really. I mean, some people might think it's a great song and it's helped by the length. But like I said in my other videos, like I'm not one of these people that will praise a song more because it's longer. Far from it. I think that some songs are helped by the lengths, and I don't think Achilles' Last Stand is, really. I think it could have done similar with less song length, really. But oh well. Again, I'm going to have to cheat. For Your Life and Royal Orleans, nice little, funny little songs. No skips, none of those. Candy Store Rock, Nobody's Fault But Mine. Maybe not quite as vibrant as the other song. Hot Song for Nowhere, getting a bit worse overall, but they're still fine. And then finally, T for One, I believe is sort of the bluesier song that kind of feels like a part 2 of Since I've Been Loving You. And although it's a long song, it's a really good long song that you can sort of just tune out to in a way. That's kind of how this one feels, and it's good for it. Weaker, but still good. So I just want to stress this once again. Although, like probably a lot of people, Presence is scoring rather low, relatively. I still have to just be really clear. I really like their last 2 albums, to the extent that I'm putting this one higher than even Led Zeppelin 1. You can say Led Zeppelin 1 is a lot more classic, a lot more well-known, and it's a lot more Led Zeppelin-ish compared to those last 2, including Presence. I enjoy Presence and Into the Outdoor a lot, and I just enjoy Presence in some more than Led Zeppelin 1. If I was rating Led Zeppelin 1 just from my favourite 3 songs, the ones that I mentioned before, and maybe even Communication Breakdown, which, you know, is heavy, but it's just okay, I'd score Led Zeppelin 1 higher. But because I'm having to talk about songs like Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, or I'm trying to remember now, the other folksier sort of Led Zeppelin 1 songs either way, yeah, it just scores a little bit lower just because it's a bit imbalanced in that way. Whereas with Present seems fairly balanced, to be fair. So, I see why people don't love Presence, but for me as one listener, I get more out of Presence overall as an album than I do for Led Zeppelin 1 as an album. I would definitely prefer Led Zeppelin's best songs over the best of Presence, let's just be clear on that as well, but these are album rankings, they're not just songs. There's a lot of songs that I really don't care about on Led Zeppelin 1 as one person, compared to pretty much everything on the anything on Presence. So yeah, let's just keep on moving. Let's just move ahead. So what have we got? Number 4. Again, from instinct, it's probably going to be House of the Holy. But the choice now is going to be whether it goes in 4 or 3. I'm going to float it. I'm going to put it in 4, at the top of 4. Now, for the reason for why I would put this one next isn't necessarily a huge negative, but I would say, just like Led Zeppelin 1, it's got so many great songs, but it's sharing that great company with those great songs, with so many songs I personally just don't care about. And it's just the songs that I skip mostly. Like some songs some people would love and consider some of their best material, like The Song Remains the Same, the Rain song, Over the Hills and Far Away. Well, at least these songs. Some people would say that these are flawless classics and so on. And especially some of my favourite songs of all time, from Led Zeppelin anyway, No Quarter and The Ocean. So a lot of people would recognise these 5 songs as like smash hits and so on. Some of their best numbers. For me, I like those last 2 a lot. But those first few, while they're pretty revered and pretty classic flavoured, because you're seeing those song names a lot when it comes to Led Zeppelin, I just don't really care very much about them. And in fact, while I might spin The Song Remains the Same, and I might put on the Rain song in the background, maybe half the time at a push I'm skipping them, so it is what it is. The next songs are pretty memorable, actually. This is the thing about these albums, like I said, they've got such character. Every album has its own unique sort of personal touch, and this is the most varied Led Zeppelin album, absolutely. So that's what I appreciate about it, but it's not giving it that many extra points. It's not really giving it that much extra push, unfortunately. Interesting enough, though. So I'm not going to get the order right, but Do You Maker, that sort of reggae sort of song, as interesting as it is, it's a skippable one for me. Dancing Days, a bit more of a rock flavoured song. I love that song. It's not one of my favourites, but I really like it. So that's one of my favourites from the album. The Crunge, as some people don't really take so seriously, I really enjoy. So even though it's meant to be sort of a funkier flavoured song, I find it really entertaining. So of all these songs that I've named, a few of those songs, just like the songs in Led Zeppelin 1, are head and shoulders above their same album contemporaries. There's just some songs on this album, just like Do You Maker, just like Over the Hills and Far Away, and the Rain song and so on, that are fine and good Led Zeppelin tracks, but for me, I don't really listen to Led Zeppelin for that side of them, sadly. And this is the thing, it's very hit and miss, House of the Holy. It's so varied and so diversified that unfortunately it doesn't feel very comfortable. It doesn't really sit very stably, unfortunately. Gross. So although some great songs scattered amongst a few bad ones, on balance as an album, while less balanced than Presence, the weights of a few of those like No Quarter and even The Crunge and Dancing Days, it does place it just a little bit further ahead of these other ones. Just trying to think of how this is going to appear in some people's minds, because I think no one's going to say House of the Holy is their best album, of course, but I think really where I've put them is actually pretty moderate, pretty average. So yeah, I kind of said what I said there, so I'm going to move on. Next one on my list, difficult. Oh, this is tricky. Difficult. So I think I'm going to have to admit, before I even place these next 4, these ones definitely move around the most. I think there's a few at the top that don't move very much at all, if ever. But the ones sandwiched in between my worst and best, they do sort of skittle around a little bit. So, this is really challenging, but I think I'm going to have to put Led Zeppelin 3 in the 3rd rank and in 4th place from best. So I adore Led Zeppelin 3. I love what Led Zeppelin 3 brings. They are such a matured band by album number 3 as well. If you compare Led Zeppelin 1, which has a bit of the flavouring of Led Zeppelin 3, that sort of folksier kind of styling, what it does best in this album, unlike it's doing in any other album, to be fair, is its sort of folk rock kind of style. It does the folk rock thing best in Led Zeppelin 3 than it ever does anywhere else, within reason, as an album anyway. So I would just praise it so much for that alone, really. It is the folksy Led Zeppelin album to a T. And while there are some albums that you could say are kind of very different, in a completely different world of sorts musically, I think Led Zeppelin are in their element, whether it's in the folk thing or they're doing the rock thing. I just think they fit in so well either way. The thing about Led Zeppelin 3 is it's maybe just leaning on the folk thing little bit too much. If you're the sort of person that listens to Led Zeppelin as a rock and roll band, like I think most people do, like I mostly do, although I love a bit of folk rock, I don't know, it's not for me Led Zeppelin's pinnacle, really. I love what they're doing, and I really enjoy this one even more than the rockiest stuff from the albums in number 4. I just think that Led Zeppelin 3, most songs, apart from maybe the last 2, I think most of those songs are really, really good. So just to talk a little bit about the songs, I don't want to go into too much detail. The Immigrant Song is one of those culturally iconic songs for my generation because of the school of rock, of course. But because of that, I've actually just heard it a bit too much, sadly. So I'm not scoring the album so well because of Immigrant Song. Do I think it's one of the best songs? It could well be one of their best songs, but I've just heard it ad nauseum. Feels like I've just listened to it too much. Yeah, I'm a bit numbed out from that one. I think Friends is next. Friends is a really, really nice little acoustic-y song. A bit of a dark, a bit more mysterious in its aura, which they do really well. Next to Celebration Day. It's a good rocky sort of song, and it's feeling very much of its own quality. It's very characteristic of Led Zeppelin 3. Everything so far that we've heard feels and sounds really different from everything that's come before and what comes next. So Celebration Day is a great song. Night on the Tiles, I can't remember the song name exactly, but Night on the Tiles, really good song. I think some people would kind of look over that one, sadly, and yeah, I think that's a really good song of theirs. To remember the other songs, I'm going to have to cheat. Since I've Been Loving You, I can remember that one for a moment, but yeah, Since I've Been Loving You, it's a bit of a tough one to get through because it's almost about, 8 minutes or so. It's nice to sort of just dial back and just have that in your background. It's a really melancholic, very minor, very bluesy song, and it's probably the best of its kind in their whole back catalogue. So, and that adds a lot for Led Zeppelin 3 as an album. Gallows Pole and Tangerine, and then finally That's the Way. Really nice little folksy flavoured songs that they do brilliantly. So, yeah, I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to kind of cut and paste same sort of things for every single song, maybe apart from this last 2, which for whatever reason are just a little bit lower. This is just a really decent album on average. It has that sort of consistency that Presence and In Through the Outdoor have, that House of the Holy and Led Zeppelin 1 do not have. So it's a better and consistent album than all these other ones, to the extent that it's in its own sort of distinction as a result in another tier, another rung up the ladder. So once again, Led Zeppelin 3, I really hate putting it lower than the next choices that I've got down, but yeah, it's got to be put somewhere. And I think for me, although I really like the folk flavoured Led Zeppelin, because they can just do so much so well, it's got to go on average just that little bit lower down than the next ones, because in my mind's eye, I just think of Led Zeppelin as a rock and roll band, hard rocking band, and while they do folk really, really well, just like they do blues really, really well, they are in their prime in that environment, in that turf. So these next ones are the ones that I like the most, because it's a bit more rocky, a lot more rock and roll, just pure and simple. Although they've got flavourings of folk, flavourings of blues, probably over most of their albums really, but yeah, for these next ones they are a lot more rock oriented. So what am I putting in spot number 3, and where am I actually going to be putting it in its tier? So maybe this is going to be a bit of controversy here. So I'm going to put Physical Graffiti probably about there, and the reason for this is, while Physical Graffiti probably has actually my favourite songs they've ever put out, it's just filled with a lot of songs that I don't care to listen to very much, unfortunately, especially Disc 2. Disc 1 is mostly pretty solid. I'm trying to remember what there is. Disc 1 is pretty much bang on where they ought to be, pretty flawless stuff. Custard Pie and The Rover are in my top 5 songs probably, especially The Rover. In My Time of Dying, it's interesting and sort of colours the album with a bit of a sort of a bluesier flavour. But for me, just because of the song length, I'm not normally getting through the whole song, which is a bit of a shame, but that's the thing about these songs. If they get to that sort of length and they don't really justify it, they're getting a skip somewhere. So yeah, it's a good song though. Trampled Underfoot and House of the Holy. So House of the Holy and Trampled Underfoot are some pretty good songs, and They add to the album. They don't hinder the album so much. I'm not calling these greatest hits material at all, unfortunately. They're good. They're decent. They're just not smashers. Kashmir, as interesting and as rich as Kashmir is, and I can tell why it's as popular as it is ultimately, I don't often listen to it very much because I think, once again, just like the Immigrant Song and other songs I'll talk about next, I've just heard them a bit too much. And I'm not really wanting to listen to an orchestral arrangement so much, which really is kind of sort of the backbeat and the centerpiece of a lot of this, amongst, of course, a bit of rock and roll. But yeah, Kashmir, as decent as it is, I don't often love it and enjoy it as many other people probably would. But I wouldn't say that, however, about In the Light. In the Light, if I'm up to listen to a long song from Led Zeppelin, it's, yeah, probably going to be In the Light, because it's doing a sort of more of a progressive rock thing with that keyboard, so on. It does it really effortlessly and flawlessly pulls it off. Like, you could have this coming out of, I don't know, Pink Floyd or Yes, and it would be rank and file just as good as most of the songs those bands put out. Like I say, there's so many sides to Led Zeppelin. There's the blues, there's the folk, there's the rock. In here, I think maybe one amongst none others, they do prog rock and they do it really, really flawlessly. So this is a fantastic song, In the Light. And then finally, I think this ends disc 1, or this maybe this begins disc 2, whatever. Down by the Seaside's a good song, and I'm not ever skipping that. But yeah, I can't say it's one of their best, unfortunately. Just like Trampled Underfoot and Hours of the Holy, it's a good song that adds to the album and helps it rather than forces it down. What have we got next? We've got 10 Years Gone and Night Flight. Yeah, this is where we're kind of getting towards the sort of tapering out of Physical Graffiti. This is sort of where it sort of loses its way a bit. So not bad songs, but after you've had so many smashing songs from disc 1, this is a bit of a difference, sadly. Like, I don't really hold these in high regard. These next two songs, 10 Years Gone and Night Flight. The Wonton song, I will listen to in the same way I listen to something like Down by the Seaside or Trampled Underfoot, in the sense that it's a decent song, but only decent, not like The Rover, which is one of my favourites. And then finally you've got the last 3 songs, which, again, they're fine songs. They kind of just remind me a bit of Led Zeppelin 1. It's like, I'm going to admit to myself that they're not bad. It's just I don't care necessarily enough to listen to all of Physical Graffiti, including these final few, just because if I've got The Rover, and if I've got In the Light, and a few of those other ones, I'm not always going to be so happy to go the final hurdle and go the whole 9 yards to listen to something like Sick Again or Black Country Woman. Sometimes I'll listen to them, sometimes I won't, but in my head I'm just thinking, like, do I want to listen to that right now compared to Custard Pie? No, unfortunately. So the reason for why it's higher up than Led Zeppelin 3 is because, as I was sort of giving light to, Led Zeppelin 3 is just a really solid, consistent album, start to finish mostly. With Led Zeppelin 2, though, it's kind of all over the shop, I'm afraid. Like, you've got a load of their best songs, and you've got them sitting next to a couple of their really worst songs, I must be honest. There's a few towards the end of disc 2 and so on, which I really don't feel strongly about. The only thing I can really say is, amongst a few amazing personal favourites of mine in Physical Graffiti, there's maybe equally as many dull and boring tracks, so I can't possibly put it in the top tier because of that. It's clearly flawed, whereas with number 1, we have to be honest, the first, or the S tier and so on, it's going to have to be kind of perfection, or as close to perfection as you can get, and therefore we cannot be calling Physical Graffiti anything but a flawed collection of some good and bad songs in my world, unfortunately. So yeah, if we were ranking songs individually, there'd be a load of Physical Graffiti scoring up there in the S and the A's, but yeah, just a load of just filler for me. But that's the weakness of having a double album. They just had to fill it out somehow, because obviously with vinyl, especially back in those days, you kind of had to. And if they kind of weren't ready to release their best work in 2 discs like maybe they could have done, it's going to hurt them a little bit, like for me in my ranking. So yeah, Physical Graffiti, let's just leave it there. Some great songs, but also some really, for me, quite dull songs as well. Finally, we've got the S tier. So I'm just going to be honest, all of the next two are going to be an S tier to some extent. And the reason for that is, to whatever extent, I consider these pretty much flawless, pretty much bang on. Like every song almost is peak Led Zeppelin for me. And also really well balanced as well. That's another strength. Consistency's there, quality's there. Just everything with these next two, for me, is scoring in that next level above. Some people wouldn't necessarily think that about Led Zeppelin 2. You see a lot of people really giving a lot of love to Led Zeppelin 4. For me, I consider them almost equal. I consider a lot of these albums pretty similar in quality. But unlike Physical Graffiti, and unlike House of the Holy, these are really steady on. There's a lot of great material and there's nothing that bumps the road at all. So let's just get right on to the final rung of this ladder in tier number 1. So my number 2 choice is probably going to have to be Led Zeppelin 2. And the reason for why I'd say Led Zeppelin 2 is probably going to be second from the top rather than the first is, while, again, inescapably, there's so many of my favourite songs on this, I just think there's one or two towards the end that more or less are normally a skip song for me, a few of those at the end. So just to sort of give a bit of detail about my thoughts. So, Whole Lotta Love, one of their best songs, in my top 5, easily. Potentially the same with What Is and What Should Never Be. Such a great track. Such a build-release sort of dynamic. And the Lemon song, as cheesy and as silly and as as corny as it really is, because obviously we know what the Lemon song probably is talking about, it's still such a great rock and roll song. Like, even when they're not trying to make a masterpiece, they make one anyway with the Lemon songs. That's the quality. That is how great Led Zeppelin are at the end of the day. They will release a silly song and it will be an epic rock legendary track. I wouldn't say it's one of their best, but maybe top 10. Like, everything in Led Zeppelin 2 and to an extent the next album as well is definitely sort of top 10-ish material. What's next? Thank You could be the one song on this album that I'll skip, and you know, it's a fine song, but if I'm going to skip anything on this, it's going to have to be that one. However, every song that follows is just great. Top 10. Heartbreaker, brilliant. Absolutely great riff. Same thing with Live and Love and Made. Ramble On. Moby Dick as well to an extent. Thankfully it's quite a small one, quite a short song. And then finally Bring It On Home. I kind of feel similarly about Bring It On Home to Thank You. Like, it's not reaching the stratosphere like Whole Lotta Love. It's not reaching the lows and the basement of something like House of the Holy as well. So yeah, on balance, Led Zeppelin 2 is just utterly fantastic, really, for me. It's got so many best songs of theirs. It flows brilliantly. It feels just really smooth and consistent. It's smooth sailing from start to finish, more or less. So for that, it's going to have to be somewhere in the highest rung of the ladder. It just so happens that I just prefer, overall, the next album just a little bit more. A tiny little amount more. It's really difficult to place these, like I say, but yeah, so let's just finish off the list. So, of course, top of the list is going to be Led Zeppelin 4. And of course, I mean, the reasoning is quite simple. Just like Led Zeppelin 2, every single song, pretty much maybe bar one, is basically greatest hits material for me. Like, Black Dog is just maybe their best rock and roll song. It's really hard to say that. Maybe that's not true, but one of their best rock and roll songs for sure. Same thing with Rock and Roll. Copy and paste that one. Then you got the Battle of Evermore, which is a good folksy sort of flavoured song. The thing I really enjoy about Led Zeppelin 4 is it balances their rock and roll flavour with their folksier sort of flavour really, really well. This is therefore for me the most balanced in their sort of musicality. Whereas with Led Zeppelin 2, it's just very more, it's leaning on its rock and roll side of things. And it's a development of what Led Zeppelin 1 was going for, sort of a rock and blues and somewhat folksy flavoured release, but a bit more matured. And then, of course, you've got Led Zeppelin 3, which is very much on the other end, on the other wing of the plane. And Led Zeppelin 3 and Led Zeppelin 2 are feeling to me like brother and sister albums. Whereas with Led Zeppelin 4, it's sort of like you're kind of combining them like in a sort of a fusion dance of just one really well balanced album that does the best of both worlds. You can kind of call that a bit of a weakness. Like if you really like a bit of rock and roll and you only want rock and roll, then you're probably going to be the sort of person that puts Led Zeppelin 2 at the top of your list. And then on the other side, if you're sort of the person that likes a bit more of the folky sort of flavour, you will probably go with Led Zeppelin 3, and I wouldn't blame you if that was the case. But Led Zeppelin 4, I just think that it's doing pretty much everything that 2 and 3 did so well, all in one package. So it's really clean. Talking more about the songs, Stairway to Heaven, I haven't really talked about yet. So with Stairway to Heaven, I think there's every justification for this song being as popular and as ubiquitous as it often is. And in fact, there's that famous joke from Rain's World about people playing this all the time in guitar shops. But Led Zeppelin just have a thing for making such great classic songs that unfortunately, just like the Immigrant Song, you will just hear it ad nauseum and you'll get really numb to it. But objectively, if you were to listen to that song for the very first time, it will rock your world, really, if you're dialed in and you can appreciate that sort of thing. Next songs, a little bit more average for me. Misty Mountain Hop and Four Sticks. Don't worry, I mean, for me, they are still great songs. I'm not going to put them down. But they're probably the worst of the best of Led Zeppelin for me, for Led Zeppelin 4. And then finally, Going to California leans on the acoustic side of things. And When the Levee Breaks is a really gurning rock and roll beefcake for me. One of their heavier songs. One of their best songs, definitely in my top 10. Again, I'm going to sound very much like a broken record for a lot of these rankings and descriptions and so on. But this is the thing. Led Zeppelin is such a great band. They haven't really been one of my favourites for that long. And I haven't really had them in my palate, up in my brain, so to speak, for that long. I've always known about them, but for the last few years, definitely, I have come to appreciate them to be basically one of the best rock and roll bands that there has been. So, yeah, I think for very good reason they are hallowed and revered as sort of these sort of rock and roll royalties, these gods amongst other bands, similar to the Beatles. I think pretty much I've said what I needed to say. So, all in all, Led Zeppelin 4 and Led Zeppelin 2 are for me pretty much all killer, no filler. Cannot possibly say that about Physical Graffiti, but Physical Graffiti has some of their best songs, as it so happens. Led Zeppelin 3 is just a really decent, really consistent album. Just happens though that there's not really a greatest hits, maybe with the exception of the Immigrant Song. They're all so listenable, nothing really I can flaw. And then finally you've got that last tier in tier number 4, which is either some weak but consistent albums or some very inconsistent albums with some somewhat decent songs here and there. That sort of rounds me off. So yeah, I'm just going to sign off on that. So as always, guys, thank you so much for getting to the end of this video. If you have enjoyed, please like the video. Really helps. Please make sure to give me your thoughts in the comment section. Give me your own rankings. Tell me which one of my choices has been the most controversial and so on. And then finally, if you're brand new especially, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be coming up with plenty more of these videos in the next few weeks to come. That's been me for today. So I'll see you all on the other side. Peace. Signing off.